Well, it says I'm live, so I better get talking, better I? Welcome aboard for Virtual Collage Jam for Monday, February 5th, 2024. Still not used to saying 2024, but I'm sure I'll get it by the end of the year. Yeah, so today we will be using the prompt from Februllage, which is a month-long collage challenge. They publish a calendar. I think this year's calendar was published sort of mid-January of prompts, just kind of like we do here, word prompts, and one a day for the entire month of February. And if you post collages with the hashtag Februllage, people will be able to find it, and other people will be able to find yours, which is cool. They'll be able to find yours and you'll be able to find theirs. So yeah, see what other people did with the same prompt, kind of like we do in Virtual Collage Jam group. I hope you'll post it there as well. And I have a stool for you. Our guest is just making her way, and as you can see in the background there, so we'll welcome her in a moment. Hello, Joy. I see you were the first poster. Nice to. She says, back in daffodils and snowdrop land.
Oh my God.
That, it's way too mild here, but we don't have any of that going on.
Signs.
No, exactly. And Irina, hello, welcome back. She says, it's been a while, good to be back collaging together. It is indeed. Yeah, thank you. And hey, Annie, yay.
Yay.
Yay. Nice to have good collage company along. And as you can see,
I'm here.
We have a guest appearance by Kim. She has other fish to fry, unfortunately, or fortunately for the people she's frying them for. Yeah. but she'll be joining us for the first few minutes, which is nice.
At least I didn't pull an all-nighter last night.
No, she was prepared a little bit more for the group she's working with for Humber, and you only went to bed at 4 instead of 7:30 or whatever it was the previous collage jam last week. So,
much better.
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
So I don't have the links or the hashtags or any of that yet because it's very new. But before I go any further, I should mention that I am going to be a juror. The juror, so the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just me. For a collage exhibition at my artist friend Holly Buchholz, who is, you know what, I'm not sure which state she's in, so I'm not going to say. It's one of the northern states, but I can't remember which one.
Ohio, I recall.
It might be Wisconsin. I will have to look it up. Anyway, we did an exchange. In fact, since it's right here, I can reach it. This is a lovely painting she sent me. Right angle, there we go. And I sent her one of my signs, and we follow each other on Instagram and comment back and forth. And she invited me to juror a show. And what's great about this is, you know, those little lending libraries that some people have on their front yards with books in them and so on? Well, she has a little gallery like that, a tiny gallery. And not only is it it's not just like a mailbox with like, this is the space you can exhibit in. Some people do that. But I think it has more than one room, and it is populated with figurines. There's even a little cafe area. And
so it's like a miniature scale
gallery. Yeah. So I think the pieces are usually, you know, something like a maximum of like 4 inches by 4 inches or smaller. The 4 inch by 4 inch ones look like, you know, a big piece on the wall. Yeah. But she's going to do a collage exhibition, and she asked me to juror it, so I'm going to. Yay. So I'm going to invite all of you guys to do that. So I will. They're not in the video comments down below yet, but I will do them after our jam. And I will also be posting about it.
Put it in the group too.
Yeah, I'll put it in the Virtual Collage Jam group. Yeah,
email newsletter.
And
right?
I think it's. I think the call is sometime in, like, the deadline is sometime in April, so you have a bit of time. So, but it'll be fun, right? To do like
Yeah.
super small collages. Yeah.
Teeny tiny.
Yeah. And actually that's kind of like that when we did a time or two ago on the labels, right? The little label collages. So yeah. So we've got lots of comments. Jane. Hey Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Yay. She says, hi Kal and Kim. Nice to be back after a few weeks not present. Said error in previous message. Did you get this? Yes. Well, we got this.
We got this one.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And Karen Harvey, hi from North Wales.
Woo!
Really? Wow.
Yay! Welcome.
What a treat. Yeah, welcome. That's awesome,
That's
Karen.
lovely.
Yeah.
So it's you're 5 hours ahead of us, I think. So it's 8:05 p.m.
Evening. Yeah,
where you
yeah.
are. Well, that's a good time.
Yeah.
Dinner's
awesome.
done.
Yeah, yeah.
You're relaxing.
Cool.
Getting creative.
We've only been to the UK once, but I kind of like.
I've been twice.
That's where my heritage is from there. My grandparents were from there, not Wales, but the UK.
Yeah.
And as soon as I went there, I felt like, wow, this feels like home. Everyone understands the importance of tea time and and likes cute things, and yeah. So I want to go back.
Kal discovered his roots.
Yeah, that I didn't even know. So yeah. Hey Val, good to have you along and back, and Philippa.
Hi Val,
awesome.
Philippa, Joy.
Yeah, great to be with you again. Looking forward, she says. And Ricky, hey Ricky. How are you? How are things in Philadelphia? Awesome. We're getting
it's great.
We've got
Wales?
Wow, Wales, British Columbia, the other side of the continent. Yeah. We got Philadelphia, so it is quite a widespread little jam, which I love. And awesome. Irina is in Germany, so wow,
fantastic!
I think I'm safe. I think I can safely say this is the most widely geographically spread jam I've done. So thank you everyone for joining us. That's so cool.
Wouldn't it be fun to live stream virtual collage jam from some of the places where some of our participants
I hope you guys wouldn't mind hosting our world tour in 2025.
That's right.
We could print t-shirts with all the tour dates on the back
and buttons. Oh, that'd be awesome.
I think we have to do it.
I think we do. I think that's a brilliant idea.
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Stay tuned.
Yeah. We'll keep you posted.
But yeah, we won't have it all nailed down by next week or next month. Yeah. But I think we have to do it. So Ricky says, hi, Kim and Kal. I've been away for a while. Good to be back and see you again. Likewise. Rebecca is here. Hello, Rebecca. Yay. Joy says, nice to see us both live. Karen Harvey says, it's already dark here. I live in the seafront. Oh, and can see the sea. Oh.
Can hear the
tea time, the best time of the day.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. And Ruth
in Ottawa
is joining us from Ottawa. Yeah, that's awesome.
Our nation's capital.
Yeah. And
hello, I think it's the second coldest capital in the world, isn't it? After Moscow.
Yeah, maybe not this year.
Yeah.
But
in general,
on an average, yeah. And hello, Nellie. And Nellie's, I think,
is Nellie. You're somewhere else too, aren't you?
No, I think she's in the Toronto area right now. But she is a globetrotter. So
yeah.
And Ruth says, "Oh yes, it is." The world has become suddenly so small. Exactly.
This is one of the ways in which it's really lovely that the world has become smaller.
Yeah, exactly. There are upsides and downsides to every change.
So we have to really strengthen the upsides like this. This is magic.
When we were growing up, some people had pen pals.
My mother grew up with pen pals all over the world. Yeah.
But you really had to be sort of
enterprising.
Committed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you had to seek out opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Because God, remember long distance phone calls if you.
Yeah, a 5-minute call would be an arm and a leg.
Well, and we used to have to, some places you have to call and arrange with the operator to call you back when they made the connection, when it was across the Atlantic or the Pacific or something. It was crazy. and it was super expensive, which is why my father, like so many fathers, was dead set against long distance phone calls.
Of course, exactly. So Karen says, I'm a writing for well-being practitioner, but I did collage with my group on Zoom for Februllage in 2001, 2002, and 2003. Wow. I had no idea it'd been going on that long. That's awesome.
Fabulous.
It gave us a great sense of togetherness during lockdowns. Oh yeah. So 2021. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
And that's why Virtual Collage Jam began, Karen, if you didn't know the origin story.
Yeah.
It was started soon after the first lockdown in March of 2020. The first session, I think, was the very beginning of April.
Yeah.
And and I started a similar event that was not collage, just whatever strange thing whatever medium my mind turned to.
Virtual studio party, and you would just work on whatever you were working on.
Everybody just showed up and did whatever.
Exactly.
But we started doing that, and at first we were doing it quite frequently because
we're both teachers, and all of our students were like, we don't have any classes, and what do?
We can't leave the house.
And we're like watching the news and freaking out, and like we were too. So
and all the people who lived alone or
shut in,
it was just, we couldn't bear the thought of everybody feeling so isolated. So that's why we started this. So so we're thrilled you're here.
Yeah, awesome. And Ruth says, "Remember phone party lines?" I don't think I ever experienced them firsthand, but I knew some people up at the cottage who used one of those where it was one line for like however many places. So yeah.
My grandmother and grandfather, who retired to the country, they talked about when it switched over from party lines to
actual individual lines. Nellie says, I corresponded with 40 girls, mostly from the US and UK. Wow,
Nellie, you are such an overachiever. Holy moly!
You've been not sleeping for a long time, haven't you, Nellie? Nellie in my classes was always coming in with like 1,000 things she had working on, and she I went to bed at 4 and got back up at 6, and I've been working manically. And
you think she was a graphic designer?
Yeah, exactly. Philippa says it was a lifesaver. Thank you, Philippa. I'm glad. And
Ricky, is Kal freezing on anyone else's computer
and
than mine?
And a few people have said not so. So it might just be a glitch in your particular internet feed, or if your Wi-Fi is acting up, or your service provider is. Yeah. It's great though that you can check, right, to see whether it's just you or whether it's everyone. And I've definitely, some of the earlier ones, we had internet trouble, and I'd be yakking away, and Kim said, I think you haven't moved for like so
one of the things you could do potentially, depending on how you're set up, Ricky, is move close. Like if you're on Wi-Fi, move closer to the source for your Wi-Fi, the modem or router.
Yeah, if it's easily done.
If you can do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What have we got next?
Val says not freezing. Karen says, I'm older than you guys. I remember the party lines.
You skipped her earlier one. Some good things came out of it. Yes.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
In the creative adaptation, right? This is where creative people's creative thinking was really needed.
There was some really amazing stuff, like musicians figuring out ways to jam,
which is really hard because of the lag.
Yeah. And Kim's watched some Zoom, some dramas that were made on Zoom.
Yeah.
Made on Zoom and for Zoom, where the actors were playing.
Michael Sheen and David Tennant.
Yeah.
Awesome. Staged. Maybe anyone here watch that?
Staged, it was
called?
Yeah,
it's called Staged.
Yeah.
Eventually they did 3 seasons of it.
It was pretty funny, right? Because they were actors pretending they were actors.
Yeah.
Or actors playing actors.
It was done like
and like
very realistically, but a little heightened. So they were
Yeah.
playing versions of themselves, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and it would be a split screen, like they were actually having a Zoom conversation,
and sometimes several people would be
additional
on it.
their producer would be on or whatever. Yeah,
Judi Dench had a great
a cameo,
actually.
right?
Yeah. Okay, where are we? Some good things came out of it. You both were pioneers. Thank you, Joy.
Judy says, "Hi, Kim and Kal. Sorry, I'm a little late. Great to see you, Kim." So yeah, that's lovely. Hello, Judy. Nellie says, "I bought a big notebook from the dollar store that I've been collaging in a lot, slowly moving from one to another. A great pastime, composing and putting a lot of thought into it." That's awesome. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
And hi, Judy. I didn't say hi to you.
Yeah. Hey, and Lisa Kemp is joining us as well.
Hey,
Hello.
Lisa.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. I think we have a bumper crop today,
Wow,
which is awesome.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And the sun's out. It was gray a while, not that long ago. So
everything is good here.
Hail the sun.
Yes, exactly.
Man, we've been starved.
Yeah, we haven't had much sun here. The last day or two, we've had some sun, which is awesome. But
all of you who are in different, we're near Toronto in Canada. So all of you who are elsewhere, how has it been sunshine wise for you? Have you been starved of sunshine like we have, or have you had pretty good balance?
We had like 2 weeks where there was like virtually no sun.
I got up late one morning. I usually
just recently, late, right? Yeah.
And I felt like I'd gotten up at dusk. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. It was so dark. Yeah, that's disheartening, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Starved
of sunshine. Yeah.
In Ottawa. Yeah. But boy, is it bright today. That's good.
Great.
Yeah. And Ricky says here too, awful, but today is gorgeous.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Good. Good.
So I guess I should switch to my overhead camera finally and get some collaging
we got
done.
some more.
Yeah.
Let the chat come in, give people a chance.
Very changeable in Wales. Gray today.
Right.
Karen and Irina says very mixed weather from freezing to nearly spring.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. It's some places it's logical that would be the case, but it's definitely we should have a
foot of snow, and we don't.
We have everything's bare. So, yeah, and it's above zero. It's been above zero the last several days.
Yeah, and this time of year it should not be above zero.
No, exactly. But sun is good. So yeah. So,
okay, so you're going to switch the camera.
I'm going to switch the overhead camera.
Well, I'm going to head off to do some video editing because there's nothing I love better.
Yep. And I'm going to see what I can come up with for Encounter. And let us know in the comments whether you're going to work with the prompt or whether you've got something else planned. Encounter just seems like a prompt that's made for collage, like bringing unusual things together, right? So encountering each other, or maybe it's you encountering the collage materials. So yeah, let us know what you think. And post it in our group, and post it if you do post it on social media, be sure to tag Februllage so that other people can find it. And let's get this party started.
All right. Have fun, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, Kim.
Have a great time.
It's going to be great. Awesome. And so we're going to go black for just a minute while I get the camera set up overhead. So don't adjust your set. Ricky, it's fine. Don't worry. All right. I'll just get it sort of somewhat focused on my desk here. Cable out of the way. And I think that's close enough. Close enough for rock and roll. And hopefully the coffee will kick in and we will have some rock and roll, some collage rock and roll. So, as I've mentioned before, I'm taking a class on Monday mornings this year. And so Monday I'm usually doing homework, and or sorry, Sunday I'm doing homework. Monday morning I'm actually taking the class. So I really am coming unprepared. So it's a negative because before I started taking this course, I would like do a little thinking about it, and I think, okay, well, I'm gonna maybe do this approach or whatever, and gather some materials on that theme. And this right now, I just have to decide what I'm gonna do in the moment. So I am going to rifle through a few magazines and see, and just clip out some things, and maybe end up putting them together. So I did reach for some sort of different kinds of material. Obviously, my my go-tos of fashion, but I also grabbed Common Weeds of Ontario, Images of Ontario, National Geographic, a bus map, a sort of vintage child's book about Ken Dryden, the hockey star, and a book called Famous Artists Annual 1. And I forget when it dates from, but it goes back a little ways. I think maybe the 80s. It's funny that, well, I don't know. It's not obvious when it was done. It's definitely vintage. Printed in Switzerland, so it's obviously printed really well. And it's quite interesting because it's not very many books have images of art and graphic design, and this includes both of those. So it sort of looks at visual culture more holistically, which is great. So it's got like posters, advertising illustrations, and definitely these are illustration type things, and then fine art as well, which including like installation. So it's very oh wow, there's a beautiful Diebenkorn too. Wow. And a Philip Guston. So yeah, Willem de Kooning. So lots of cool things. So I thought maybe I'll just grab a few things out of that too. So we'll just see. Maybe some of these things will encounter each other. They definitely have some historical things as well, like this is Henri Rousseau. So and this is a like interesting, like an article about protests. So including work from Peter Bruegel, William Hogarth, Goya, George Grosz, Picasso, Orozco. So it sort of looks at protest, but with a whole bunch of different time periods and different artists' interpretations. So that's really interesting. Lots and lots of, you can tell it is somewhat older though, because lots of black and white images, right? So back when color image was something you had to be budgeted for, right? So probably dates from the somewhere like 60s to 80s. So, what are you guys? What are your approaches? Do you have any ideas, or are you just are you riffing? Are you playing with the prompt? Let us know. Let us know in the comments, and I will go check in on them in a few minutes. I'm a sucker for this kind of thing. This is an ad for the public library, and it's just, most of the ad is a huge A that is so big it's running off the page, and it says A is the first letter of the alphabet. There are 25 more in the Chicago Public Library. There are 25 more. The Chicago Public Library has all of them in some very interesting combinations. And I just find that hilarious. So many different kinds of encounters one can think of, and rifling through books for images or anything will give you options that you hadn't imagined. That is one of the things I love about collage, is that it gives you starting points. It sparks your imagination, rather than like, here's your blank page, what do you think? Well, I don't know. But when you're working with collage, it's like, oh, that reminds me of X or Y or whatever. So you have this spot to begin with. Wow. So this is like a fairly realistic illustration of the one of the moon landings, but it's by Norman Rockwell. So he must have been pretty old at that point. And wow, I just don't associate that with him. And that's amazing. So, wow. It's kind of, you don't expect that subject by him, do you? So, of course, I'm not going to use it for creating some sort of an encounter. So, I mean, something that is interesting is a bunch of the images I've looked at already sort of have encounters in them, but I'm not a curator. I'm a collage artist, so it's about creating. creating my own encounters. This is where we need Kim while I go silent while I'm working to keep us regaled with comments. Something about this lunar landing module and this illustration that they're, I don't know, very different. That one's very crisp and one's very sort of sketchy, but the palette's similar. And I was just thinking, like, it'd be fun to put like the head on the lunar module or something. So I'm gonna see about doing that. Just for fun. I'll check in with comments in just a sec. You know how it is once you get going, right? You want to like keep going, so I will be there. All right. So, Joy, so just picking up, finishing off the weather report from our various stations. Joy says, cloudy here today, so send me some sun. Nellie says, cool weather, but poor squirrels can't hibernate, crossing streets and getting killed by cars. Yikes, yeah. Val says, did one encounter collage, decided to do another one. Awesome. Yeah, because I mean, there's no shortage of encounter options, right? Lisa says she's working on this week's Paris Collage Collective Challenge, which is a picture of a quilt. Ooh, that has all kinds of options, doesn't it, Lisa? Like cutting out holes to show things through or weaving things. Yeah, that's awesome. Irina says, finish the first one. Wow, Irina, you work quickly. That's amazing. Ruth Austin says, I have a blank canvas 4 feet by 2 feet that I want to collage in black and white. I have no clue what I'm going to do with it, LOL. Well, first thing is to gather a bunch of black and white. And I know you already have a bunch of it because I remember all the interesting black and white collages you do in my classes, right? You have all kinds of pattern type stuff. So, and maybe look for some photographs and stuff like that. And maybe find a theme. Irina says 3 pieces of a mountain goat on a chimney and a young woman finds him. I love that. Jane asks, what's the class I'm taking? It's actually in electrolysis, believe it or not. Electrolysis is hair removal, one hair at a time, using electric current and a fine needle. It's a little. Someone suggested it as that there aren't very many of those people around, and that it is might be a good side gig for an artist to earn a little money. So I thought that sounded good. So Jane says, I'm playing with a copy of a very delicate Chinese paper stencil. Ooh. Coloring it in and then hope to incorporate a cutout of something encountered. Interesting. Yeah. Because you can start with one thing and then find the thing later that's going to encounter it, right? So yeah. And our speed queen Irina says, and now a fun one. A rock climber climbs a pile of ceramics to meet a crush or princess or lover. That's awesome. The scale changes that you can do with collage so easily, right? Like the mountain climber climbing ceramics. That's awesome. It was funny. I sort of pulled them up further the first time and thought was kind of unhappy, or not unhappy, but sort of nonplussed. That that wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. But lowering his head, it seems like hiding a bit more of his face seems to have helped. So that's kind of fun. I'll probably just keep that as an idea. Maybe I'll do something more, maybe not. I'm just going to riff on things for the moment. It's the Kiriko piece. I'm used to seeing it in color. There's something fun about it being so stark and black and white, even though a lot of the detail of the actual painting is lost. But it's definitely already an encounter starting to happen. But I'm wondering if it'd be kind of fun to like put something unexpected in it. So who knows what that'll be yet. So fun to look at. I don't know. I remember that. I don't remember the artist's name that this painting came from, but there was a feature on them with a few paintings, and thinking, yeah, I never heard of that artist before. It's a really nice painting, really interesting. So maybe just play with that a little bit. I have the feeling that like something from this illustration put into this piece. It's a different style, but the colors are sort of very simpatico. So I'm wondering whether that would be fun or whether it would feel like too subtle. But sometimes it's more fun when it takes a moment for you to even realize that there's something at play there. So what the heck, right? Doing some encountering, so might as well. Both the illustration style and the subject is so feels so of this period, which definitely 60s feeling to it. Girls in their minis and the motorcycles and the colors. And this was also a very popular kind of illustration, these sort of montages of many different things, scenes sort of put together. I remember looking at those in magazines thinking, you know, they were exciting and interesting. And I remember doing some in art school or trying to do some, and it's actually quite difficult to make them work, make them actually look any good. You need to have different scales and certain things to be more dominant than others. Something that really works with this one, I think, is the scales sort of go further back. Like we've got this horizon line, and so there's some big things up front, and then as we get further towards the horizon, things get smaller, and then there are a couple of, like this woman sitting on something high up. That's really fun, and then the sun low down. But that use of that horizon line, just so it's very clean across the top with just a couple of things breaking out, and then it's really active along the bottom. So yeah, not things I understood when I was trying to do it. So mine ended up being just a bunch of similarly sized things that I was trying to mash together. I also really admire illustrators who can make things look fresh and loose and yet also accurate. So I imagine these could well have been done as you know, it's possible anyway, as tracings over photographs to get the proportions right from the get-go. But still, there's a lot of stylistic stuff that's been really well handled, like the complexity of the motorcycle, and yet it's done with just a very few tones of marker, relying on drawing sometimes, and then just a few grays. Yeah, this how simple but not things are. Not that that's actually a collage concern, but it is interesting to look at the. I don't usually do collages with. I usually work with photographs, so I don't usually work with illustrations like this. So that's actually probably part of why I'm intrigued. I usually do sort of steer away from like art-like things, and I'm just trying to ask myself, well, why is that? I don't think that, I don't know. I guess sometimes I feel like I want to work with, that photographs are a little less obviously someone else's, but that's not true really, because they were lit and set up and photographed by a photographer, right? And that's a lot of work, just like an illustration is. So, or a painting. So, yeah, maybe I'll start incorporating. Just like anything else, you want to. I'll want to consider how much of anything I show, so that it doesn't ride too heavily on the creativity of any one person. And you know, some of these things that I'm cooking up, they might, like for instance, if I decided that I really liked this one, I might kind of feel like it's a little bit too strongly on just those two, the illustrator who did this and Norman Rockwell. So I might then go in and adjust some other things, mess with some other things a little bit more. But I kind of think of doing stuff like this that I'm doing here, where it's like a relatively quick juxtaposition of a couple of things. It's kind of like a collage sketch. Like it's, oh, this is an interesting idea, or that's an interesting juxtaposition. And maybe that will be all it is, right? It's just like an interesting juxtaposition of different ideas, that I don't then pursue as far as like showing in a gallery or anything. Not that I show a lot of stuff in galleries, but you know, like the work that I tend to show as my quote unquote serious work tends to have more things going on in it. But that's not to say that it can't be beneficial to play some simpler games as well. It just might be that I don't necessarily show those, or they become the germ of an idea that I then develop with maybe a few more collage pieces. Maybe it still will have some of that same simplicity and directness, but with maybe just a few more different sources. And really all I'm doing now is I'm just thinking about that off the top of my head and thinking about like, okay, well, what does that mean for me and so on. So if I were to decide I really like this juxtaposition of these two main images, I might then start doing some other things that change a little bit more, like replace these rocks with another image of rocks, so that it is still harnessing what was there, but and still riding on that main idea, but bring a few more things in. Like for instance, I could also like replace some or all of the sky with another image of sky, so it's, and maybe this figure gets replaced by a different photograph of a lander, of a astronaut or something. So that is a way in which I could still like, okay, this idea is still quite apparent, but it's then become more a little more visually complex and not riding completely on the two that it is now. Check in with comments. Lisa says she's doing a portrait based on a photo of a couple of her aunts who are hugging each other. I'm going to use the parts of the quilt as my palette to paint the portrait. Wow. And I know what that means, Lisa. So that's going to be an undertaking, isn't it? Lisa's been doing some you might be going about it differently this time, Lisa. I realize that, but she has been doing some pieces where she's taking an image and creating it using other parts of other images very painstakingly to, so in this case, using the quilt to finding things in the quilt to then create the image of her two aunts. And I know they take a lot of work, and they're quite impressive. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. I mean, I have a good idea of how it's going to go, which is really well. Isn't that fun? It just kind of feels like it's even though different styles, they're kind of like made to be together, don't they? Don't you think? So I'm going to cut out this little vignette of these two. Yeah, it's always the guys on the motorcycle and the driving, and the women riding alongside, along on the back. That has changed. Or I hope it's changed. I just had the thought that I might include a little bit of that stripe as well. And I can always take it off, cut it off if I don't like it. But if I can include it now and then see whether it finds a place or not. I always like to keep my options open, and if I think, oh, that might be kind of cool, is there a way that I can keep that until I decide whether I like it or not? And that might be cutting something a little bigger than I actually need it, and then cutting it down later, or in this case, including the stripe behind these two people, and then cutting it off later if I don't like it. When we were graphic designers, we always tried to keep our options open. So if you're going to try something, like computers were a great innovation for that, because then you could do different versions and try different ideas. Whereas traditional media, it's like, this is the one I got. And you could do versions, but it costs you more time. So anytime you can, like, okay, that's good, but what about this and what about that, and explore other ideas just to see if they might be better, really be beneficial. There's something liberating too about, like, okay, that is a pretty good solution to whatever you're trying to do, right? But can I make it even better? And it's nice to sort of, and I think sometimes that's great for freeing up your creativity, right? It's like, okay, I have an idea that'll work. And so I can breathe a little easier, especially if it's like graphic design or where you're a commission of some kind, where you're working for. It's great to have an idea that will work, but then you can think, okay, so I've got that in my back pocket, but what else can I come up with that might be even better, right? Whereas the opposite of that is what happens when you realize, oh, you're really struggling and you can't find a solution, or the solutions that you come up with aren't working, and that can be very nerve-wracking, right? In this piece that I cut it out of, it made lots of sense. Back here, it feels like it's almost too bright in the grays of the background, so it jumps forward too much, which is interesting. It's very context dependent. Whereas this feels fine because it really feels like it's at the front, both scale wise, and it's got whites. Whereas the painting really doesn't have a lot of white, especially once we get back. So it uses sort of lights up here to feel closer, and then goes grayer further back. So that is something to think about. So maybe whatever if I do put something in the background, it'll be, it should be grayer. But I am just loving the way these colors, the colors in the painting and the colors in this illustration are working. So I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on that to sort of hold that thought, as in quite literally, like, because that is an interesting juxtaposition encounter, as it were. And I'm just looking at these hockey images and just thinking how much fun it would be to put in a surprise. There's another one of those sort of montage type illustrations. Different illustrator, but same kind of feeling, right? Like a really big, talking about Ken Dryden was a hockey player, but also a lawyer. So he actually stopped his hockey career to become a lawyer and then came back. So to get his, to train. So it's got him as a lawyer, but then it's filled with other little lawyer-like images and a little bit of a hockey image and so on. So yeah, it helps tell a multifaceted story well, right? So. Funny, I'm not coming up with any juxtaposition ideas yet, or encounter ideas. So I'll put that aside. Maybe these motorcyclists that I've cut out will find their way into a different context. How are your encounters going, guys? It's quite an image, isn't it? Sort of a flooded dead forest with reflections as strong, almost as strong as the in the water, as strong as the things below. So that's kind of fun. Somehow feel like there is an encounter to be had there. Whether I use half of it or both, or more than half. All right, see what you guys are saying here. And of that project using her ants, Lisa says, yeah, it's going to take a while, LOL. Irina says, I don't know yet which background to choose for my stack of China ceramics. Yeah, background can make a big difference, right? Nellie says, doing some digital work. We'll do some actual collages this evening. Awesome. Irina says, I like listening to you. I learn a lot about the art process. Enjoy your appreciation for all image workers. Not just artists, I presume is what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. You know, my terminology for an artist is pretty broad. I mean, of course, there are artists who do all kinds of different things, but and so a photographer is an artist, a musician is an artist, a interior designer is an artist, a graphic designer is an artist. You know, some of them would say, no, I'm not. But they are in a sort of a fundamental way. So lots of people like to make a division line between people who do it sort of for commercial purposes and people who do it for quote unquote pure purposes, like fine artist, quote unquote. But I actually think they're in large part sort of false distinctions. But everyone, you know, everyone's entitled to sort of call themselves what they think they should, right? Lots of people say an artist, you know, if you call yourself an artist, you're an artist, right? And I kind of go along with that. I know lots of people sort of like, no, I'm not an artist, and I've said to some people, no, you're an artist, and it's like, no, I'm not. I don't feel comfortable. It's like, so you're not comfortable calling yourself that yet? Maybe at some point in the future, and maybe people like me and other people telling them that they are an artist might help them get to being comfortable calling themselves an artist sooner. But when Kim and I were first together, she said, "You're an artist." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a designer and I'm not an artist." And she said, "You're an artist. You just don't want to call yourself that yet." And then eventually, a few years later, it's like, yeah, I do call myself an artist now. So. When I think of the word encounter, I definitely think of things like this, like being hiking in Algonquin Park or something like that, and encountering wildlife. And I'm looking at this deer and thinking that's great. I'd like to put that deer in a different context somehow, but it's also not the easiest shot to cut out. All the legs are sort of lost in foliage, so I'm not sure that there might be a way, but it's not suggesting itself as easily. I am wondering about like this illustration of a football player and cutting him out partially and insinuating him into this green. So I might try that. It's also struck by how different this image is compared to this image, and thinking that there's something interesting about that. Not sure it quite qualifies as an encounter, but there's something interesting about it. Looking at some pictures of like Antelope Canyon and some people climbing in it and then practicing rescue in it and swimming in the in the gross water in the bottom. It's sort of mud and debris in it. So that they're having an encounter all by themselves. I have this idea that cutting out one or more shapes of these rocks and replacing them with like flat solid colors would be interesting. So I'm just looking at the image to sort of see which ones make sense to cut out and what should be what should go and what should stay. So I think the way I'm going to go about that is pick a couple of 2 or 3 colors and tape this to them and then cut my shape so that I get them in a few different colors and see what I think. I think something ridiculous like hot pink would be great. I want something dark, because if I replace one of these darks with a dark color, that's beneficial. But I don't want brown, because brown is too close to this, right? I think something unexpected is good. There, those are 2 bright colors, bright and lighter value colors. And I want a darker value color. This blue is definitely darker. Not sure it's dark enough. But if I leave the darker area and paste that onto, I'm going to pick one dark. And is like burgundy, dark red, dark enough for what I want? I'm not sure. Actually, that's red. Sometimes it's hard to tell these colors because the colors reflect on each other in the package until you pull them out. It's hard to know, is it? Okay, I think that's probably, that'll make it difficult enough because I'll be cutting through several layers. Is there one I can do without? I wonder. The pink and the green are both light, and then the blue is middle and the red is dark. I do kind of like both of these. So can we get by without the blue? Yeah, that's what I'm gonna, for better or for worse, that's what I'm gonna do. All right. I know Ruth is with us this, and I had one of the classes I taught, I think it was the fashion collage course I did a process kind of like the one I'm about to do, where we stacked up a few different colors and then cut through all of them so that we could have different colors to play with. And I remember Ruth, it drove Ruth crazy. The first stage, because she had very complex cutting to do. And she was like, this is going to drive me insane. And then it got a little better at the end, right? Because you realized, oh, actually, this allows me all kinds of opportunities. But I remember it was testing your faith a little bit, wasn't it? I'm not even sure that I'm going about this the right way for what I have in mind, because it may be better to do it a different way, but I only have so much brain capacity. So I will launch in and let the chips fall where they may. Especially on something like this where I'm also talking. Does that mean I don't sometimes sit down and think things through, work out ways to do a collage? Absolutely, I do. But it doesn't make for very interesting. It doesn't make for very interesting collage jamming. So to just listen to the silence and watch Kal look at an image for 15 minutes. So today we're just going for it. But I would also, I think that's worth mentioning to you guys, because I think sometimes when we watch other people, especially on YouTube, or, you know, they, especially if they end up with a really great product, which, you know, oftentimes they do because it's been rehearsed, right? They've given it a whole bunch of thought. They've prepared before they've done the video, right? So you can be forgiven for thinking, oh, well, that's how it must work, right? I can't tell you how many times I've spent a lot of time thinking something through before I actually work on it, or I have had more than one or several false starts where it's like, oh, right, okay, that idea that I just had, I can see this is not the way to go about it. I shouldn't have started it this way. I should have done it this way. I have to start again. Or even if you think it's going to work out the way it's going to work out, and it looks promising, and then you get further along and it just, you know what, it's not working as well as I hoped. And that happens lots of times. So, and I don't, going to say I don't worry about that. It's not that I don't worry about it, but I don't worry about it so much that I let it stop me. I used to, but now I just realize that the best way to a good outcome with art is to do a bunch of it. And inevitably, the more you do, the better, the better you get at doing it, and the better you understand your instincts and so on. And most, you know, there, from every artist has a different batting average in terms of how many pieces come out well. You know, out of the ones they start, some of us like may get one every 20. Some of us may be like, some of us may get one every 2, or even more than that. Or some of us our batting averages may be really high because we stick at them until they're done. You know, they have all kinds of failures underneath the final top one that worked. And some things that happen really quickly, like a gestural painting, right? A gestural painting, if you want it to really have those kinds of big splats and great marks, the way you practice that is by doing a lot of them, right? So there are going to be a whole whack of them that don't work. Whereas something that is really long developed, like a planned out painting, and you've sort of built layers and do, yeah, you can still end up like 3/4 of the way through it and like, this isn't working, but you can eventually bring it around. So really there's no, it depends a lot on the artist and the way they like to work, but there isn't an artist out there where everything works out. And there are certain processes that just have more failures than others. But even if your process is one of those processes that has more failures, it still has successes, right? And sometimes it's like, yeah, I know it has a lot of failures, but when I get it, it's really satisfying, right? And you know, it just depends on our makeup, right? Whether which ones we're drawn to, which kind of, you know, if the process is something that really works for you, well then nothing really fails because you learn stuff while you're doing it, right? It's only a failure if you convince yourself that it is. And even then, like, I've seen people throw stuff out that's like, don't throw that out. Oh no, it's terrible. Like, no, it isn't. It's not. Honestly, I'm trying to convince you that it, and they throw it out anyway. It's like, but they can't see it, or it fell short for them, and that's ultimately their call. I will often try and convince students not to throw things out because because usually it's better than they think it is, right? So, but I've definitely been there myself too. It falls short, or you think it's fallen short, and you just get frustrated or disgusted, but I've known that I've experienced enough times where I've ended a work session on a piece of artwork despondent, like, oh, this is terrible. What was I thinking? I just have to walk away from it. It's terrible. And then the next day I look at it and I think, okay, it's not nearly as bad as I thought. And now I have some clarity, and I think, oh, actually, you know what it needs? This may not save it, but I know what to do next now. And sometimes that happens the next day. Sometimes it happens the next month. But it's usually when we're tired, right? I think. I notice for me, I have good working time sessions when I'm like really cooking. I really like the way it's going. I'm in a good mood. And then as I get tired, I notice that first of all, my judgment leaves the building, right? I don't know necessarily what to do, and I also get more negative about it. I think, okay, well, I now know myself well enough to be like, okay, so this is not the time to judge it. This is probably a good time to stop, come back when I'm fresh, and not try to force things. And I'm getting to the point where it's like, is it late in the day? Am I tired? okay, don't make any rash decisions now about anything, right? About like, that isn't the time to sort of look at your life and think, is it working? It's like, no, you're tired. Of course it's going to feel. And same thing with art, right? Don't make judgments about your art when you're tired. And I have yacked up a storm, I just realized, and it is getting close to the end of our jam. I don't know how that happens, but so I am going to go a little bit longer than 4:30, but if you have to leave right at the dot at 4:30, completely understand. I'm just going to see what you guys are saying because it's been a while. Joy says, seeing differently is always rewarding. Absolutely. Rebecca says, one of the hardest things I did in art school was learn to call myself an artist. Yeah, it's for some people, it's really hard, and I count myself among them. I think most people can identify with that. Occasionally, there's someone who's like, they know from the get-go and they're completely comfortable with it, but we usually have a pretty strong idea of what an artist is and that we're not it. And usually more often than not we are, right? So Ricky says, I'm responding to a call on belonging. Oh, that's interesting. Funny how many ideas I'm getting from Encounter that make me think of belonging. That's great. Yeah, so it's actually a sort of an adjacent prompt in some respects. So that's awesome. Hey, Anne. Nice to have you along. Anne Lakoff joined us. She said, just in from a life drawing session, so my Encounter collage may feature something from the drawings. That's perfect. That's great. It's always great when your work when you can collage with your drawings or paintings too, right? Lisa says, I think failures are part of the process and help with figuring things out. Absolutely. That's how we sort of figure out what works and what doesn't, right? So it's not really a failure because it's a learning experience, as long as you can sort of see it that way. She says, it depends on inspiration, how the ideas come together. It works or it doesn't. It's all part of the process. Yeah, exactly. Like it's only a failure if you don't learn anything from it. And if you have that sort of growth mindset where you look at a quote unquote failure and think, yeah, okay, this didn't work, but I learned a bunch of stuff. That's great. It's actually a success, right? Irina says, I have that too when I'm tired or emotionally sensitive, then I don't like my stuff. Exactly. Yeah. So it's a good time to just not be judging it, right? Lisa says, are you doing any in-person classes this year? Yes, I am. I'm doing, so this spring I am doing it's just going to be a one-day workshop for Nielsen Park Creative Center on painting with fluorescence. And so I guess not as much as I thought. But then in the summer, Lisa, I don't remember, do you go up to Halliburton School of the Arts? But I'm going to be doing two week-long courses at Halliburton in the first and second week of July. So those two courses are in person for sure. Nellie says, about not forcing things, a collage notebook done over a long time can be thoroughly exciting and gives you so much leeway. Absolutely. And there's something great about flipping a page, right? Like we actually use that phrase, turn the page, of sort of like leaving something behind, right? But what's great about it is you can leave something behind, but then you can go back and look at it again. So Ricky says she has to leave. Such a good encounter with the group. I'm so glad, Ricky. Thanks for joining us. And since Ricky is leaving and probably a few others, I should mention that our next jam, there's a family day in Canada, and we have a couple of other Monday things that we need to do. So our next collage jam is not until the 26th of February. So join us then. And so, yeah, thanks for joining us, Ricky. Lisa says, not Halliburton, but I can get to Nielsen Park. So maybe. Cool. That'd be awesome. I haven't got a date yet for that. They will let me know. It was going to be like a one-day weekend, like either a Saturday or Sunday. So in the spring. All right. I'm going to be able to be really nice to just give you a little bit of an idea of what I was thinking with this, even if it's only partial. So I'm just going to try finishing a couple of cuts, and then we'll see whether I can just give you at least a sense of what I was thinking. And if not, then I'll have to I will have to continue it after the jam. I like this idea of like cutting through many different pieces of paper, but it often means that it's there are usually spots where it hasn't gone all the way through because I'm going through so many layers. So I flipped it over to try and look for and find the areas where it's not quite cut all the way through. This is definitely a case of one of those things when don't feel like it's fully thought through, but sometimes that can still work. So we'll see. Yeah, I can see I've got some other problems. But really the idea is sort of to have this kind of a thing happening. Something like this, where I'm gonna have to trim that properly, but where photograph and sort of graphic color interplays like that. I think pink might be better, but I obviously have to make these two side cuts as well. So and the jam can't go on forever, right? So stay tuned. I will try and get that a little further along and post it in our collage jam group. Meanwhile, I will bring the camera back to sign off. There we go. And thank you so much for joining me. And it was nice to have Kim with us. And I hope at least some of you guys are interested in doing some of those miniature collages and submitting them to Holly's call, because I think that will be would be a lot of fun to do, like miniature collages. I mean, some people like to work big and they just like small stuff drives them crazy, but if not, hopefully that'll be cool. And I will put links to that in the description after we're off. Irina says, thank you. Have a nice day and time. Likewise. Thank you, Irina, for joining us. And he says, really like the red and pink. Yeah, me too. Thanks for a great afternoon. See you next time. Likewise, Annie and Nellie. Bye-bye. I will try those miniature collages. Send a picture, right? Yeah, I think, I'm not sure whether they're, presumably you send a photograph and then if it's accepted, then they will ask you for the actual piece. That's usually how it works, but I'll have to confirm that. Jane says, thanks, Cal. Mine came out a bit whimsical, but was fun. Whimsical's good. What's wrong with whimsical? That's awesome. Please keep us informed about the mini collage for sure. Lisa, you're welcome. I'm glad it was fun. Likewise, Val and Karen, thank you so much for joining us. That's lovely to have someone joining us from Wales. Awesome. Thanks. And Judy, you're very welcome. Yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So, Rebecca, yeah, it's nice to have you along, and I will definitely pass your hello and goodbye on to Kim. So, thanks everyone, and we will see you in a few weeks on the 26th of February. I forget what the prompt is, but it is on my website on the Collage Jam page, so you can check it out there. And do post anything that you did today in Virtual Collage Jam group on Facebook, and we will see you in a few weeks. All right, take care. Bye-bye.